Hi, Amanda, and thank you so much for joining us in episode 5 of our Inspiring Women series.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, so I'm so thrilled to be able to hear about your career path and your journey and the advice you have for those young leaders that are just starting out their careers. So, to get us started and for our viewers, do you mind just talking about your current role and if you've ever imagined you being in that role before you started?
Sure. So I am currently the co-founder and CEO of Love Live Local, and we are a small business advocacy organization here on Cape Cod. And our mission is to communicate the importance of shopping local and supporting small business.
Mhm, mhm.
And to answer the question about whether or not I thought I'd ever be in this role, the very short answer is no.
Yeah.
My education is all in the environmental field.
Okay.
I got my undergraduate degree in environmental studies and then my graduate degree in public policy with a concentration in environmental policy. And I came back to the Cape kind of trying to figure out my next move,
Mhm.
and I ended up working for the Hyannis Main Street Business Improvement District, which was the first time I had worked outside of the environmental field, and
Mhm.
my first time working with small businesses. And it was kind of there that I really connected to the idea that they're very important to our community
Mhm.
and to our local economy.
Absolutely.
And so I very soon after actually opened my own small business and opened a retail store called Shift. It was an eco boutique.
Hmm.
So it kind of like married, two of my
Yeah.
loves. And then becoming a small business owner, I found myself advocating more and more about the importance of keeping our dollars in our local community.
Right.
So it was kind of like a, you know, um,
Yeah.
circuitous route, but I also just sort of went where the opportunities presented themselves. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
It's like your paths all aligned, where they're supposed to be.
yeah.
Now, as a leader, what or who motivates you to step up and become that leader?
It's interesting because I don't really cognitively think of myself as a leader.
Yeah.
I've always been a very passionate person and motivated to make a difference. Like I said, I thought I was going to be in the environmental field from a very young age. I was fighting for environmental causes, and it was more of a kind of a like I felt like people needed to hear information, or if they just knew,
Hmm.
and certain things, or if and even now, if they
Right.
just knew how important our small businesses were,
Right.
and so I felt like there were times that I needed to step up
Hmm.
and take the lead in
Hmm.
in those conversations, and then
Hmm.
sometimes there are times that I join a coalition
Right.
and just become one of those voices. So I think
Yeah.
those are both really important in being a leader, I guess.
Yeah. No, I like the point you made that even if some people don't have that like concrete leader role, we're all kind of our own leader, in what we advocate for.
Yes.
So I love that you mentioned that. And do you
Yes.
feel that there are benefits in having women in leadership roles?
Absolutely. I mean, 50% of the world population is women.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think it's really important. We have different life experiences. We do offer
Right.
different perspectives. And
Hmm.
and I think it's really important. I had a very strong female role model in my mother.
Hmm.
And so I was able to, from a very young age, see that I could be in any role that I wanted to be. And that
Right.
that could be the leader of a home in your home
Yeah.
or the leader of an organization.
Right.
It's like, it's wherever you find meaning. And,
Hmm.
like you asked before, where do you draw that
Yeah.
meaning from? And for me, it's community. And then for some people, it's family. For some people, it's the, wanting to lead an organization. So,
Mhm.
but I think it's incredibly important for women to have a voice, at least 50% voice at the table.
Yeah,
Because
for sure,
yeah.
for sure. And like you said, everybody brings their own perspective and experience. And I think that allows us to see kind of those creative ideas come together. Now, what are some benefits that you feel you have received being in the leadership role?
So being in the current role that I have, but also leading my own small business, and all of that was let me connect to the community and be surrounded by people who care just as much about this community as I do, and learning from them. I mean, that really has been, I think, the most beneficial thing for me, being in every role that I've had, whether it's the leadership role or part of a coalition. Sure.
Is there anything that you wish you knew earlier in your career?
Yes, I will say yes. So as a small business owner, I worked 7 days a week, and was always kind of on. And I really do wish that I had known that rest and restoration actually makes you much more productive and effective. And so I learned the hard way that it really is important to take care of yourself, and to, definitely, rest is productive. And I think we live in a culture where people feel like they need to be productive all the time.
Right.
And so reframing it to be like, oh, wow, this actually kind of helps me perform better. That was definitely something that I wish I had known earlier.
I think that acts as a piece of advice for a lot of the people that may be viewing this video. Because like you said, I think we're all just used to the hustle and bustle and the busy lifestyles. So that's great advice. And now, how can leaders, do you think, provide useful mentorship to women to help them advance in their careers?
I think it's really important. I have been so fortunate in my career here on the Cape to find women who are willing to be open and honest and vulnerable with me about their experiences. It's not just saying it's great all the time, but being, like saying, these are the challenges. And I think that's really important. It also lets you know that, if somebody's saying, oh no, it's great all the time, and you're not having a great time all the time, you kind of feel like, wait, am I doing something wrong? And so I think it is really important to be honest about the totality of the experience. It's not just successes. There are going to be challenges along the way, and that's obviously how we learn and we grow. And so I think being an effective mentor means you're not just a cheerleader, but you're also somebody who's willing to sit in the hard times with somebody as well.
Absolutely. And did you have a specific mentor growing up, or?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned my mom, and she's always been, she had, multiple roles. I grew up on the Cape, and she had multiple leadership roles in the community. And so I did have a really good example there. She worked for Housing Assistance Corporation for decades, and then went on to lead the Hyannis Chamber. And so she's definitely been in leadership roles on the Cape, and has always been an amazing sounding board for me, and has always allowed me to see that, whatever I want to do is possible, and that can change too.
True.
Change and evolve. So she's been great. And there have been other women in the community that I've leaned on in times of transition or in starting something new, that have always been so generous with their time and their advice. So I definitely appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, that support network is certainly key for all of us.
Yes.
Would you find that these same people inspire you, or are there others that you draw your inspiration from?
I would say those people definitely inspire me, but I am so inspired by, I think, the Cape Cod community has so many incredible women. I always remark about this, that are in not just in my social circle, but in my volunteer circle. And I look around and I'm like, wow, I get inspired by women in the community every day. And my friends are hugely inspirational to me. And there are also women in the last few years who have founded nonprofits that are kind of breaking ground here that has never been broken before, that I'm incredibly inspired by as well. And I definitely, there are people that we're kind of going through the same in similar experiences right now. And so having them as sounding boards, and seeing how they're, you know, taking it one step at a time, but still powering through, is very inspirational to me. Sure.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. I know, kind of switching gears, I know we talked about how rest is so important as like that little piece of advice. So can you talk about how you balance your work and life?
Yeah, it's hard. And I think there's almost people are trying to find balance all the time, right? Like where it's like, my schedule is the same all the time, and I need to this much work and this much play. But I have found in my work and in my world, and here on the Cape too, it's like, we know that summer is crazy, right?
Yeah.
And that's where, you know, you might be working a lot more. For some people, it might be you're resting a lot more, but just knowing that there are going to be times when you are super busy with work, and so your personal home life is going to maybe take a little bit of a backseat. But then when you are given the opportunity to slow down at work, take it. And then it's like you're focused more at home. And for us, you know, in the work that we do, it does get, the second half of the year is very busy for us. It's when we have our events. It's when our retail store is very busy. And it's when we put out our publications. So we do take the first kind of few months of the year to do planning, but also just a little hibernating. And I also try really hard to put boundaries around my time, and honor that I'm going to take days off, and say, like, you know, my laptop gets closed at a certain time, and I try not to have it on my lap all the time like I used to.
Right.
So I think that's really important. And I'm fortunate to have a great support system who they understand when I'm like, you know what, I can't show up for this right now, or, you know, and I have a great partner who is very, you know, encouraging, about my work, but also encourages me to, he's not from the US. And so he has a very different mentality about this kind of need to be productive all the time. So it is interesting how that has influenced me a lot to, you know, take time to, for myself and for my personal life. It's it's so important, because, you know, life isn't just about work. It's about, fostering your relationships too.
Totally. I think being on the Cape too, like there's such that strong sense of community here. So I think we all take that break, but we're also, you know, we're collaborating at these events, and it's kind of like a work-life balance where the environment is so positive. You know what I mean? We kind of all lean on each other. So during these tough times, and, you know, we all look forward to the summer too. So.
Yeah. And also, I mean, that's the other part is, like, we live here for a reason. I mean, there are lots of reasons, but the natural environment is one of them. So if we can't enjoy it in the summer, what's the point?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So making a point to go to the beach, you know, is definitely on the agenda.
Yeah. I think, you know, self-care, unwinding, it's different for everybody, but it's important that everyone kind of finds their own niche. So as we wrap up our interview, Amanda, my last question would be, what advice would you give to those young leaders that are just starting off their career?
That's a very good question. I would say, don't be afraid to veer off the path of like shoulds and onto the path of possibility. You know, like I think oftentimes we're encouraged to have our life all mapped out. And I think it's really important to take the side roads. Sometimes you never know what you're going to learn, and every experience is something to learn from. And I think being true to yourself and putting yourself first is huge, and know that you'll be okay.
Yeah. That's right. I love that advice. I've certainly taken the insights that you've provided throughout this interview, even in my own life. So I appreciate you joining us today. I know that this is going to be a great resource to all those young leaders who are just kicking off their career. So thank you so much, Amanda.
Thank you so much for having me. I love this.
Yes, thank you. We'll talk soon. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.